Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of Disney's response to Epic Universe. If you missed last week, go ahead and click back to part 1 so that you could kind of hear the foundation of this episode. We talk about what is to be expected in Universal's Epic Universe, all of the crazy things that they're doing over there, and how they're really trying to come at Disney. They're going all out with the ride systems, the lands, their intellectual properties, all of this stuff. And so I also talked a little bit about that, but also talked about what Disney should do to respond to Universal. And so I gave a brief overview of the 4 lands that would be in Disney's 5th park. In my mind, that's what it should be, but would love to hear your suggestions as well. But tonight we are going to be diving a little bit deeper into each of these 4 lands and what you could expect if I were an Imagineer, which I'm not. So let's just pretend we're Imagineers. We're armchair Imagineering. Let us know your ideas below so we could communicate and just kind of expand on ideas, which is always super fun. But thank you so much for listening, and let's go ahead and jump into the episode. All right, so before we get started, if you listened to last week, you kind of know what is going on. Emily and I are parents to a second child now. I'm pre-recording this early at September 7th, so the second baby is not here. But by the time this episode comes out, we are probably incredibly tired, trying to, survive and getting maybe an hour of sleep at night, which is always super awesome and really cool. But the cuteness of the baby always helps, which is always fun. But I am pre-recording this because Emily did some pre-recording sessions with me. I'm doing some by myself. We're kind of really working hard so that we could still keep up a weekly cadence. And we do it because we love you guys so much and love hearing from you. So if you are listening on a podcasting platform, if you want to go ahead and click follow or write us a 5-star review, that goes to help our show so much. If you're listening on YouTube, like this video, subscribe. It really, really does so much to help support our channel. Also, we have some links in the description below. If you want to support us even further, we have some affiliate codes for Park Hop Teas and Magic Candle Company and Getaway Today. And then we also have our online merch shop, which also goes to support us a little bit more, especially with the second baby. It'll be some diaper money. It'll be some formula money if we need formula. So that really helps so much. But let's jump into this episode. Okay, so as a refresher, last week I talked about the 4 lands that I think Disney needs to have within a 5th park. And this will kind of model what Epic Universe is doing, being that it's by property, not necessarily by theme, right? Usually Disney is by theme: Adventureland, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, right? Now, there is a Toy Story Land. There is a Star Wars Land. And so that's why I was like, let's just set up this park by property. And so the first land that is within this park, and remember what I said last week, is we're kind of modeling this after Fantasy Springs in Tokyo Disney Sea, that they have a area called Fantasy Springs, and there's going to be mini lands within that area. So there's going to be a Peter Pan land, a Tangled land, a Frozen land, all within the larger land of Fantasy Springs. And so this is kind of how I want to approach these lands within the park, which is what I'd say last week. It's either going to be called Enchanted Adventure, Worlds of Adventure, but I thought that sounded a little bit too close to Islands of Adventure at Universal, or Adventures Landing. So kind of like, King's Landing, or like, it's like an area. It's like a town is a little bit bigger than a town. So Adventures Landing. I'm not sure. Let me know what sounds best, or if you have something better, definitely let me know. So the first area would be Marvel. We talked a little bit about the Marvel contract of 1999 last week. Pretty much Disney cannot use a lot of Marvel stuff in Walt Disney World. So I proposed going up to Universal, seeing if they could pay some big bucks to secure a few superheroes from them. It's worth it. I mean, whatever the price tag is, it's going to be worth it. It's going to pay itself off. And I said, if we were able to do that, we would have like a New York City area. But if they weren't able to do that, we would have a Wakanda area to start with, and then maybe have some land set aside for a expansion, which would be New York City, because most of the superheroes, for some reason, live in New York City. So I know what you're thinking too. Wait, Disney can't even use Black Panther. I mentioned this last week that there is a Black Panther painting in a restaurant, I believe, in Universal, but it's Black Panther, but it's probably T'Challa, not Shuri. So I think that's a way to get around it. Say, no, this is Shuri, not T'Challa. And so you could build a Wakanda here. It's probably not legal, but I'm just going to say it's legal for this episode. So for Wakanda, I'm thinking you walk in. I was thinking actually maybe if you were able to secure some rights for like a New York City area, let's start there. I say we build a New York City area instead of like Avengers Campus. It's like a campus that's built in California. This would be what you would expect from a superhero movie. New York City. And here we'll just have, some nice high rises and some shops, some nice restaurants, maybe like an actual sit down shawarma restaurant or something like that. But I think we need a Spider-Man ride here, but a better Spider-Man ride. Come on, like Avengers Campus Spider-Man, it's fun, but it's Spider-Man deserves so much more, right? And so there was a patent that Disney actually patented before they decided this ride system that's currently at Avengers Campus, where you're just stationary and you're like flinging webs with your hands, for a ride system that goes along a track almost like Peter Pan, right? Like it's suspended, but it swings from side to side. So it feels like you're swinging across buildings. And I think we need something like this. I guess in a way it would be similar to Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey ride system, where it's kind of on a crane that moves along, but maybe a little less pukey, right? Like maybe you don't need to go as intense as they do, because I know a lot of people don't go on that ride because it makes them really sick. So something similar, but a little bit of screen, a little bit of I would love physical sets. I think physical sets are great, but it still is going forward on a track, but it swings you back and forth. Maybe you do a little bit of a tilt during some parts, but I think that'd be really, really awesome, because I think Spider-Man definitely needs more than just a Toy Story Midway Mania ride. So in New York City, maybe there's other, photo opportunities for other characters, but I think as you walk through the land, this land eventually ends up into Wakanda. You know how like in Wakanda, you have to kind of pass a certain barrier to even see it. I feel like something like that would be really cool. Maybe like a portal, maybe like I talked last week about how Universal Epic Universe is going to be having like little celestial portals where you have to get through to the next land. I say here, maybe there's something similar to that. Like you're walking through New York City and there's a circle that you have to walk through, kind of like Galaxy's Edge too. You have to walk under the berms to get to there, right? Maybe like a circle like that, and maybe it has lights around it, so it looks like Doctor Strange is kind of creating a portal, and you walk under that, and then once you turn the corner underneath that portal, bam, you're in Wakanda. And so that'd be so cool. You go in there, there's a lot of trees. It's really, really lush. But there's also modern buildings here, tall, kind of thinking about Galaxy's Edge, how there's tall spires. Those will be buildings too. Maybe there's like instead of building a lightsaber like you can at Galaxy's Edge, maybe there's some other kind of tech thing that you could kind of help build. I know Shuri has a lot of cool tech. And maybe there's a experience there where you could build some tech, maybe like a little arm launcher thing that shoots out something. I don't know. But I think, something else in the land too. So, right, like really lush with trees and buildings and stuff, but then also a big waterfall area. You know how in the movie you see Black Panther fighting against Killmonger? Maybe at this waterfall here, they do a stunt show or something like that. That would be so awesome. But I just love water effects and water areas intermixed with lush and other kind of areas around that. So I think that would be really cool to add that to the land, maybe do a stunt show there. But for a ride, we got to bring the ride that they talked about originally that they were going to bring to Avengers Campus. And this ride was going to be based, I believe, in Wakanda. And it will simulate a battle in Wakanda, I guess similar to what happened in Infinity War, maybe slightly different. But you know how in Infinity War, Thanos has his there's like those little dog things. It looks like demodogs, like from Stranger Things, and other creatures that are just battling against you. So I say in this ride, you start off by Shuri equipping you and saying, hey, we have your own private jetpacks that we're going to hook you up with, right? She's very tech driven. But the original ride that was going to be in Avengers Campus was a ride where you all get in a Quinjet, but you're in your own individual seats. And it was going to be a screen-based ride. And you start off in the Quinjet. And as you're flying, someone shoots down the Quinjet and it breaks apart. And so you eject and your seats go from a stationary position almost to their own individual ride system. It like breaks out. And that was what was being talked about for the Avengers Campus ride. But so let's say with that idea in mind, you are driving in the Quinjet, flying in the Quinjet, you're flying and you're trying to battle people and something happens. And then you eject out of your seat. So you almost do like an up, kind of motion similar to Tower of Terror or Mission Breakout. You go up and then everything kind of falls apart and you're now in a bigger screen. And so you're still kind of fighting. And maybe there is almost similar to Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, a lever on your left where your individual ride system can go up and down, kind of like Dumbo, right? Super easy up and down. And maybe there's another button that kind of shoots out lasers or something like that. But now you're in this big environment that's similar to Flight of Passage. Yeah, it's interactive, right? So, and then you're going and you're fighting and you're doing all this stuff and then you see everything around you. I think that would be awesome because it's kind of mixing Smuggler's Run, Flight of Passage, but then it brings in a new element because Disney has to go hard on these ride systems because Universal is going all out, which you heard about last week. So start in the Quinjet, eject your seat, you get shot up, and then you get to control where you're going and you get to control your lasers or whatever. I think that would be awesome. We need a ride like that. So Spider-Man ride, Quinjet ride in Wakanda. And that is what I'm feeling for the Marvel area for Disney World. So next up, we got Pixar here. And so Pixar is also going to have some multiple lands here. I think that a Coco land is definitely a must. Coco is so good. It's probably like the last excellent movie that Pixar made at this point. Now, in Coco Land, I say we have Santa Cecilia. You could walk around and kind of explore that town. I say there's also going to be like a little stage there. And maybe you have local Florida musicians that play there at night. You know how Epcot has that stage. Bigger bands get to play there and stuff like that. Let's allow some like smaller to mid-range musicians to play there like on weekends. That'd be so awesome because it really kind of fits within the theme of like seizing your moment and kind of just sending it and playing in front of a lot of people, right? It'd be so cool. But I feel like as you go through Santa Cecilia, you see Ernesto de la Cruz's memorial site that he had there with that sign that is now posted there. It says, remember me, not you, forget you, or whatever it is from the movie. But you walk through that memorial. And once you get to that memorial site, there's a little hole that you walk through. And if you walk through there, you go through, you cross that bridge to the land of the dead. And this will just be an amazing, amazing land that maybe you can't even see this land until you walk through that little portal. So really kind of block it out everywhere else in the park by like high berms or something like that. But once you get to the land of the dead, it's just awesome. Super awe-inspiring, kind of think Pandora, right? Also, maybe at night you do the bioluminescence that you could see in Pandora. So really a lot of people are going to be coming back to this area at night. Maybe there's some cool animatronic alebrijes and just like a really beautiful land to look at. I guess you would need to put a bathroom there, even though they say there's no bathrooms in the land of the dead. You'd probably need some food there too, although I don't think that they eat. But yeah, just some really good Mexican food. I feel like that'd be awesome. But I say there's a dark ride here that brings you through the story of Coco. But for some reason, I just love the idea of a Haunted Mansion Omnimover ride system, right? Because they both talk about the dead. Maybe it looks like, instead of a doom buggy, maybe it looks like a tombstone thing that you sit in or something. But it brings you through the entire movie. Some really cool things. Maybe instead of dropping down, you know how you drop backwards in Haunted Mansion? Maybe you do a similar drop back kind of thing, but you find yourself in the water where Coco and Hector really kind of connect and figure out that he's his great grandfather. And then you kind of go back up and you do this whole thing. I think that'd be so awesome. It'd be so beautiful. Just a slow, dark ride where you could just soak in all the scenes. That'd be so, so cool. But next up, I think we need an area of Inside Out. I think especially since they're going to be doing Inside Out 2 in a few years, we need an area like this. And so this area could feature different personality islands, just like the movie. And all these could have hands-on activities for families to play with. And so, you know, there's like Goofball Island that Riley has. Maybe there's like a funny performer there or something like that you could do. But also she has like a hockey island. Maybe there's like a hobby island, and maybe this will feature different types of musical instruments that kids or adults could go around and just bang on and play on. And maybe there's also like some sporting activities, or, you know, like a jungle gym kind of thing, like climbing, just like a fun play area in the hobby island. And this actually gives kids a chance to see all the different types of hobbies and really focus in on what they want to do. So it's kind of a really cool island that you want to take your kids to. Family Island, maybe there's, I don't know. I'm not really sure what you could do there, but maybe there's some sort of family building activity there, you know, really kind of change it up for this land. But then for a ride, I thought it'd be really cool to do a train of thought ride that would go around this small land. And so similar to like the Disneyland Railroad, where you're just you're seeing the outskirts of this Inside Out mini land, but then maybe there is a small inside section. Instead of an inside section like Disneyland where you get to see the dinosaur area, maybe there's like, you go through the abstract thought area and you get to see some funky, weird things in there, and then you kind of build yourself around. So just kind of like a little train thing here. Not really too much of a land, but you do some meet and greets, all that good stuff, some bing bong suites, and some really cool things like that. But next up, I think the last land, this was really hard because there's so many great Pixar movies. Toy Story I think of the most, but there's already a Toy Story land. Monsters Inc. I was very close to considering, but I think what would be cool is an Incredibles land. So this would be kind of like a stylized city looking land, and you know, there'll be meet and greets there. There could be a lot of really cool things in this area, but you could do a ride system that's very similar to Radiator Springs Racers, but instead of in a Lightning McQueen or other kind of race car, you're in Mr. Incredible's car that you see throughout the movie. And so maybe you kind of drive through the city, drive through some portions of his life as a dad, and then it speeds up a little bit as we're kind of getting into the action of the movie, and then kind of really doing kind of this inside outside kind of ride system, because Radiator Springs Racers is the best. So do something like that. You get to see Syndrome and all that. But maybe after this ride, maybe there is one other activity area, maybe like a water park type area with like water cannons, kind of simulating Frozone, but instead of snow or ice that comes out of his hands, it's water, but there's water cannons. And maybe there's like a big, I forgot what those robots are called, but maybe there's a big robot and you have to like really get it at the target in order for something cool to happen with his head or something where it feels like you defeated him. But maybe just like a little fun area where kids can play as well in this area. That'd be really cool. But the next area is the villains area. And we talked about this last week, that they have talked about a villains expansion in Magic Kingdom. But really, if you're building a fifth park, let's do a villains area in this awesome new park that will compete against Epic Universe, because Epic Universe has their Dark Universe area, which is going to be classic monsters. I think Disney villains definitely hold more nostalgia than Frankenstein and Dracula. I mean, those are some classics, of course, but come on, Disney villains, you can't beat it. So we've actually talked about a villains land, and 2 episodes previously, we actually talked about a villains park. Then we talked about a villains land. Maybe I'll link it up right in this corner if you are watching on YouTube. But we go really in depth in what a villains land should look like. So if you want to hear that, you could definitely click that. But brief overview, we got to have Maleficent in this land. She is the queen of Disney villains. So obviously we would have her castle there. I think other areas that need to be within this land are the Cave of Wonders. I think that'd be so awesome because there could be a ride in there as well. Skull Rock would be really, really cool as well. And so let's just start from the top. We're going to start from the top. I think there should be a ride in Maleficent's castle that, you know, it's similar. The queue is very similar to Harry Potter's and the Forbidden Journey, where you kind of walk through the castle, do all this stuff. But maybe in this one, you walk through a dungeon. You get to see like her as a dragon, which is very reminiscent to Disneyland Paris's castle. So maybe you walk past her as a dragon in the queue. You work your way up to the ride vehicle. And my idea for this ride is the same as we had it in the previous episode, is that it should be a villain's perspective on Fantasmic, which is a show that you can see at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. And so this ride would be really, really fun. A mix of mainly animatronics, trackless ride system, similar to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, but you are in the midst of the Disney villains planning the attack on Mickey Mouse. And so you get to see Maleficent first. You get to see her consulting with the evil queen, her consulting with Ursula, and you make your way through. And it's almost like you snuck into their castle and you're trying not to be noticed. And you are kind of sneaking around and going through different scenes. And then you end up seeing Chernabog, you know, from Fantasia, and there's this crazy projection mapping all across the room while you see like an animatronic Chernabog. You do all this stuff. I break it down in further detail in our last video, but the end, you get to see the last scene, this big room that's just environmental projection all around you with an animatronic Maleficent dragon and an animatronic, just smooth animatronic of Mickey Mouse shooting his fireworks or his magic at her, and she ends up, you know, kind of going down and falling and everything. So it's going to be the villain's perspective of this event that is so cherished by so many Disney fans. I also have always wanted more Aladdin representation within the parks. So I think a Jafar area in the Cave of Wonders, the queue is you're walking down the Cave of Wonders mouth pretty much. You get to walk into that big tiger's mouth. You're going through, you're doing all this stuff. And then the ride would be a Flight of Passage style ride. But instead of a dragon, you're sitting on the magic carpet. You get to watch, you know, Boo touch something, and then the cave starts crumbling, and then it's like an escape of the Cave of Wonders. That would be so much fun. And then I also think there should be Pride Rock in this area, because I think Lion King is like one of the best Disney Renaissance movies. And there's hardly anything Lion King there. So I think a Pride Rock here, and maybe, you know, in this ride system, which would be similar to Indiana Jones. So kind of like a safari type dark ride, but a little more intense. You go through the elephant graveyard. You see him singing his Be Prepared speech. Maybe you do go a little more light side. You get to see Hakuna Matata, like all this stuff. But then you see that final battle with all the fire around and everything. And then you get to see all that. But I think we need a Lion King ride. Come on, like obviously we need a Lion King ride, but it would be a little more focused on Scar and like his planning, right, for that situation. Maybe you have the Stampede that you get to experience, which would be scary, but it's also Villain's Land, so it makes sense. I also think that there should be a Skull Rock, just because Peter Pan is the best. And maybe within Skull Rock, there's a little play area, maybe a little water splash pad, because obviously it's on the water, but maybe you can climb up the skull and there's some other fun things to do there as well. But maybe a Villain's Tavern in this area would be really cool. Villain's food somehow, I don't know, like the Queen of Hearts treats because she likes eating. I don't know. Something like that. That'd be pretty fun. But then the last land that we have here is the Star Wars expansion. And so just like I mentioned in the last episode, Universal has done this twice already with Harry Potter, right? You got Hogsmeade and then you have Diagon Alley. And then now it sounds like they are going to be making the Ministry of Magic, which will focus on Fantastic Beasts. If they're doing it 3 times, we could at least expand Star Wars out to 2, right? But like I said in the last episode, I love Batuu. I love that it's its own planet. You get to focus on just living in that planet. But a lot of people kind of miss and would love to see areas of Star Wars that they grew up on. So I say that this expansion should focus on those lands that we grew up on. And it would have the mini lands, just like I said, with, Pixar and the villains, where over here is more Maleficent focus. Over here is more Aladdin focus, or Pixar, over here is Coco. Over here is Inside Out, right? So Star Wars will bring all those lands that we're used to seeing, right? And so I think just like from Hogsmeade to Diagon Alley, there's that train that you could take that takes you out of the park into another park, but it's still Harry Potter, right? The Hogwarts Express. I think we need something from Hollywood Studios to this new park that resembles like a ship in hyperspace. And maybe you virtualize the windows and everything, just a big transport ship, but it virtualizes the windows just like Rise of the Resistance, where it feels like you're being transported up and then you get into the Star Destroyer. Something similar to that, but it launches you to this Star Wars Galaxy's Edge expansion. That'd be so awesome. But here we have to have Tatooine. I mean, Tatooine is just kind of at the heart of Star Wars, right? The original movies, where Anakin is from and where Luke is from, all this. We have to have Tatooine. So maybe we could explore Luke's home in this area. I'm not really sure what would be in it, but I think to see Luke's home and walk in, it'd almost be like a museum of sorts, right? Like to be able to walk into this area that is not history, but feels like history would be so cool. I think obviously we need a cantina in this area as well. And then maybe a ride that originally I was thinking about doing like a land speeder ride, but then I was also like, oh, pod racing takes place here. So maybe a pod racing type of ride. I know that we have that with Star Tours, but maybe a ride focused on that really makes you feel like you're in your own individualized pod racer. So maybe something like Flight of Passage. I know I mentioned Flight of Passage a lot, but I think that's such a fun ride system. So maybe something like that, and making you feel like you're doing some pod racing on Tatooine. I was stuck between these 2 lands. Originally, I was thinking Hoth, but then I was like, if you visit Hoth and it's Florida weather, that wouldn't really seem realistic. So I was saying, you know what, maybe we stick to Endor, the moon of Endor. And so it's just very lush. Maybe no ride here, but maybe a little activity area where the Ewoks will come out for the kids and stuff like that. So maybe some like percussion instruments, things you could like just hit and bang on. And you could do that with the Ewoks, but just some like fun things within the tree. Maybe there's like an activity area within the trees, kind of like the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail in California Adventure. That would be really, really cool. I was thinking that as like a first one, but I was thinking we could also have Coruscant, so like a city type area, and it could have the Jedi Temple, and in there we'd have some like training for the kids as well, which could be really cool. But then the last land I definitely think that we need within this mini land is Mustafar. So, where Darth Vader's castle is, Revenge of the Sith, when Obi-Wan is fighting Anakin on that lava planet. That's Mustafar. I think that'd be really cool. Simulate, kind of the fire, kind of like Tokyo Disney Sea does. They have that big volcano that's there, but do that with like Mustafar and Darth Vader's castle. Then I think you could do a dark ride here, which this isn't really in the movies, but a little bit in some shows and a little bit more just kind of like Legends material, but do a dark ride here, visiting Darth Vader's castle on Mustafar. With all the Star Wars properties that are out now, you could do a lot. I mean, with Ahsoka, spoiler alert, depending on when this episode comes out, but she goes between the world between worlds. Maybe you even go within the world between worlds, come out to see Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting, go to another section to see like Darth Vader thriving in his castle, something like that. I don't know, some crazy dark ride that just feels like big Star Wars. I think that would be pretty awesome. But anyways, those are my thoughts for specific lands within this fifth park that I think Disney should do to compete with Universal, because Universal is really trying to be the top contender in Orlando, in Florida as a whole, honestly, in America as a whole. They are really trying to get back at Disney. And I think Disneyland versus Universal Hollywood, there's not as much competition because both those places don't really have that much space. Orlando, both parks really have a lot of space. So that's where the true competition is. And so since Disney World has so much space, they gotta go. They gotta build a fifth park to really overtake and combat this epic universe that Universal Studios is making. So I hope you enjoyed these 2 episodes. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know it's just me and not Emily. This is just like a fun geek out session for me because I've thought about this for a very long time. But thank you so much for your support. We love you guys so much, and we will see you guys all next week. Thank you. Bye.